Mac and Perry in the place. Da-na-na-na. Mac and Perry
go live to create.
Da-na-na-na. Mac and Perry invite you to stay.
Welcome to TELUS STORYHIVE On Location here in Lloydminster at Spiro's. I'm Michael Bartz. I make short films and podcasts about environmental sustainability. And this is my co-host,
Daniel J. Perryman, local theatre and filmmaker based in Lethbridge, Alberta. And this is...
Hi, you guys. My name is Elenee. I am an artist, songwriter, and entrepreneur here in the beautiful border city of Lloydminster.
Yeah, and we're so excited to have you and we'll be here and have you here and get to know about you and your singing and songwriting. It's going to be a great conversation. So.
I'm excited. Thanks for, I was going to say thanks for having me, but really, thanks for coming to me.
Yeah, you're having us. You're hosting us here.
This is awesome.
Yeah, it's fun. Maybe just tell us very briefly at the top, like just a little bit of what your artistic practice is.
Yeah, so I am a double Juno nominee, which is super cool. Like, that's so fun to say that. Technically a Juno loser 2 times, but that's okay. We won't go into that.
Yeah.
And I am artist, songwriter, producer. I've been making music since I was super young, which is really cool. Like, I feel like it was, you know, when something's just in your body, like it's like in my DNA, in my blood, you can't escape it. It was acting, it was music, it was like, it was just, everything was there. It was just like an artsy fartsy kid. So ever since I was super young, I've been making stuff and making myself do accents and singing and creating. And yeah, now I do that in like the form of production, and yeah, it's cool.
Living the dream.
Living the dream. My main genre would be, I don't know if you can call this a genre, like the main messaging of my music is Christian and gospel. But the genre, I would say, kind of leans more pop. Sometimes it's like kind of folk, sometimes it's jazz. It really depends on where the wind is blowing that day. I don't know. I'm not locked into any specific type of music. So
okay, great. Yeah. Well, let's go back. Kind of, you said you were always creating when you were younger. Yeah, I guess maybe we could focus on singing, songwriting, possibly. But yeah, tell me about when you first started singing when you were young.
I don't know when I started. I've just been singing forever. I definitely did my fair share of like wanting to sound like certain artists of the time. You know, it was like Christina Aguilera, it was Mariah Carey, all of us girlies in the like early 2000s, late 90s, we all just wanted to sound like these incredible artists that were like trailblazing at the time. So I would just throw on their music and just try to mimic their voices, which is like funny because I don't know if that was like a super authentic way to find your voice and as a singer, but I don't know, it was just something that I love to do. I love to mimic like runs and all these like little vocal motifs they would do, which is great. When I was 8, my parents and my grandparents bought me this Yamaha keyboard. It was like a big sucker. It was heavy, but it was nice because it got to go into my room. And so we had this upright piano that I would play like in the middle of the living room, and my mom would be like, "Shut up!" Like it's so noisy. And I was in piano lessons ever since I was 3. So taking that and like getting to, you know, kind of dismantle all the like Royal Conservatory music that I had ever known and put it into something that I could like enjoy playing. No offense to the Royal Conservatory, it's great. My kids are in it, but it doesn't leave like a lot of creative freedom. And so I would take this Yamaha keyboard in my room and I would like play around with sounds, and I would, you know, write a poem, and then I would like record a song that I would play, and I'd record it, and then I would sing my poem to this track that I made, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I was writing songs. I didn't even know it. So yeah, I don't know. It's just like something that I have always done. I don't really have a real start date, but just always been doing it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, especially when you are so young, you know, it's just what you're doing. You don't like, I assume, maybe, I shouldn't assume, but you don't have this like career goal of like, I'm going to be a singer-songwriter when you're 8, maybe not, but.
Yeah, and there were so many people, like, I mean, I grew up in the Disney Channel and Nickelodeon era, so it was kind of like, oh, okay, I want to be like a triple threat when I grow up. I want to act, sing, and dance. Well, I couldn't dance. I did act and I did sing, so I was like, okay, let's do this. So I don't remember, like I was like a tween of some kind, maybe 10 or 11. And we were at the old restaurant, which is not this building, it was the one like down the street and on the Saskatchewan side. And I was in the office and I made an acting portfolio and like singing, I don't know, I just made basically a resume for all the things that I did, all like the theater productions I'd been in, all the songs I had written. And I mailed it to LA, to this like agency in LA with like a school picture attached in the corner. And they called, like, of course the contact number I put was the restaurant, just see like the only contact number I knew. So I put my mom's name and like the restaurant phone number. And so they called the restaurant and they were like, hi, this is so-and-so from so-and-so agency in Los Angeles. We're looking for Maria Kokonis. That's my mom's name. And my mom's like, okay, speaking. They're like, we received this portfolio from your daughter and we'd love to have her down to do some screen testing and blah, blah, blah. And my mom was just like, she did what? She was so mad. So she's like, you know, hangs up the phone, runs into the office, and I'm just sitting there like noodling around on like Word Paint or whatever, like Microsoft Paint. My mom's like, you did what? Like she was so mad. Anyways, she never did take me to LA. I never did get to go and do what I thought I would love to do. But anyways, dodged a bullet when you know what came out about all the Disney Channel stuff. But not that I'm saying like I would have been a child star, but that was like kind of the thing I wanted. Like whether I knew it or not, it was just like, I want to be in this world. Like, I don't want to do school. I don't want to, you know, have to deal with like drama at recess, and I don't want to have to deal with a restaurant. I just want to like live my life as an artist. Okay. And so that's where it started, I guess.
What would have come next in your artistic journey?
I don't know if there was like a hard timeline. It was just kind of like continuing to sing and write and learn to get better as a writer and like exploring topics, which sounds crazy, but you know, when you're 8 and 9, you're writing songs about your dog, you know, or like your sister and how she's so annoying or whatever. You'd take songs that were already written and just kind of like rewrite the words to be funny, like parody lyrics. We did that all the time. Like my sister and I were so funny. But then like you kind of start to experience like some drama at school, and then you start to process some like heartbreak or some bullying, and then it kind of gets channeled into almost like a coping mechanism and less of like an art building exercise. And so music really carried me through like a lot of my early, like I would say probably 8 years old to like, I don't know, my teen years, and just going through like some crazy stuff. And my dad was an alcoholic and he was abusive and just like made some really poor choices. And so I was definitely negatively influenced by that. And so coping with that was through music and just like, I don't know, writing songs about like this dream world that I was imagining in my head where I didn't have to deal with that. And I, you know, had friends and like, I wasn't so weird. And yeah, I don't know. So that's kind of, it carried me really through a lot of my real formative years as a young adult. And then as I started to experience more of my faith, then it really just like carried over, like that same essence of musical stuff just kind of carried over into my faith. And then it was like, okay, now I've like had this great experience with God and like my higher power and all these things. And like, how do I put that into music? And that's kind of where I am today. Like it's been really just this ongoing stream of creativity as I just go through seasons of life.
Was there a point where you were singing, songwriting, performing, but there's kind of maybe a shift to like, you know, maybe as a kid, you're like, I want to do this and be a singer-songwriter. But was there a shift where you're like, actually, like, I'm going to make this, you know, the thing I do? Was that the case ever for you? I
don't know. I'm still kind of living in that tension, if you will, because what also beats in my blood at the same time is like, I am an entrepreneur and I love owning a business. I love being part of the business life. Like, I don't know how to explain it except for, you know, my grandparents were these like, they were immigrants that came from Greece and they just started this beautiful life. And then my mom kind of came into the restaurant and she grew up with, you know, them as her parents and she took over the restaurant, and then like, it's fallen on me to take over the restaurant. And my sister doesn't really want anything to do with it. And I'm just like, how could you not? Like, this is like the best. This is the best thing ever. And so for me to like fully pursue music, I have to walk away from this. Like there's really no world where I can juggle both well. And so, yeah, it is like a tension. As an adult though, like I started putting out music in 2014, like to actually have people listen to it outside of people in like my, you know, basement or people that were living with me. And so I really loved the experience of making music and releasing it. And And it's just like pushed me to grow as an artist. And so it's almost like now I'm in this season where I do juggle both. I'm wearing both hats. I'm doing all the things, but I'm doing both of them at a pace that feels good. And if I were to like level up as an artist, I think I would have to start saying goodbye to some of these responsibilities. So yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of just figuring that out. I don't know if anyone really sorts out like life balance, but I'm not there yet.
Okay, yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, I guess we can talk about, like you said, you were releasing some songs, 2014 or so. Hopefully I'm not jumping too far ahead, but you released an album, your self-titled album. Yeah, tell me about the process of creating that album.
Oh, that one was fun. Like everything that I had made up until that point felt a little bit boxy, like I was locking myself into this type of music. And because it's kind of like, well, if you're going to be this kind of an artist, then you need to put out this kind of music. And so in the Christian music space, we have this avatar called Becky. And Becky is basically Christian radio's avatar for whoever listens to Christian radio. It's kind of hard to explain, but Becky, this fake person, is this like soccer mom. She's, you know, in her like maybe early 40s. She's got like younger tween teenage kids, and like what is Becky wanting to listen to on the way to soccer practice, and what is she going to be okay with her kids listening to? And so I say all that to say Christian radio has a very specific sound and a very specific type of artist that they gravitate to. It's kind of across the board, like American and Canadian, but for me I was like really hoping for American Christian radio, because once you get on the radio in America, you're like, woo, I've made it. And I just kind of decided one day, I was like, I'm done making music for Becky. I like love the opportunities that I've gotten with radio, and like it's been really good in Canada, and I did get placement on like Sirius XM in the States, which is also really cool. But like it's almost draining to make music for Becky if you're not really Becky, or if you don't see yourself in Becky. And so I started to just like have fun with experimenting a little bit with like sounds and leaning into an album that had different genres within it, and not feeling so strapped to like, this is a pop album. So my self-titled album was called Elenee, and it was kind of like my first stab at like co-producing and bringing all these like imaginative types of music in this world that I create for myself, where it all kind of just fits into one spot without it really being like cohesive, if that makes sense. And so, yeah, that's that album. It was so fun. I had so much fun doing like pre-production with it. Like just, I don't know, it was great. Still kind of Becky leaning a little, just because, I mean, it's Christian music, so yeah. But I just didn't even think of Becky at all. And thank you for that, you know? And then my next album was way more collaborative. So then like I took it a step further, and I was like, okay, goodbye, Becky. I'm going to like have a little more fun with like making all these different sounds and clumping them into an album. But now I'm going to like let other people influence this project. And so I started working with people that were like way out in left field, like people that I never ever thought I would really make music with, and like just their styles. Like I remember just having my mind blown every time we would hop on a Zoom. Like I'm just like, you just did that with your voice, or like how did you, what in the world? And so I learned so much about production, like on these calls. I learned so much about writing because it was just so collaborative. And of course I got to put out music with like real life friends. And so the majority of my second project, which is called The Light That Leads to You, it was like one song is like based on sort of Eurovision pop, like that, what's it called? Stars Align. Like yeah, it's very Eurovision. Like that's not my style, but we had fun making it, you know? Sunshine and Rainbows was like kind of Billie Eilish. And the best part about that project was that it was a faith-based album, but it wasn't so Christianese that the average listener would be turned off by it, you know? Aurora Borealis, literally just a song about how my life feels like Northern Lights sometimes, like, you know, and everybody can kind of relate to that. You shine the brightest when it's darkest, and you can kind of like choose to dance instead of like, you know, bury yourself in the sand. So anyways, yeah, it's been really fun. And that album was very collaborative and just brought me outside of myself.
Oh, it sounds lovely. Yeah, that's amazing. And I'm curious, like, so how did you decide on your collaborators?
man, they were just friends. And like, Kagan has been a huge part of my life since 2023. He reached out and was like, hey, I'd love to write. And I was kind of like, I'm at capacity for like people that I have space for, you know? And I didn't really know Kagan, but I had seen him and his brother perform. Like, they were in a band, and I had seen them perform one time at a US event that I was at. And so he reached out. I was like, sure, like maybe in the new year or something. It was like December when he reached out. So he sent me, this was like right before we were gonna write. He's like, I'm gonna send you like a song start and just like a concept. Feel free to say no, but like just have a listen, and if this is something you can see yourself writing on, like let me know. And I heard it and I was like, this is so awesome. This is like one of the best tracks I've ever written to in my life. Like, it was so fun. And like, I find myself being a very cathartic writer, so I'll write very like slow, and yeah, it's easy for me to write about the hard times and all the things, but I really have to dig in and figure out how to like write happier music. So he sends me this track that's like vocal chops, and it's like really wild and uppy, beaty, and I was actually sitting in a hospital dealing with like some bleeding stuff that I had been going through at the time. So I was like not in a good mood, and I'm just like, oh, well, I'm gonna be here for like 12 hours, so I might as well, you know, go through my emails. And so I pick it up and I pull it out and I listen to it, and I'm just like, this is awesome. Like, immediately healed. Like, I left the hospital. No, I'm just kidding. So yeah, I sent him a verse too, like within the day, and like we just started writing, and we had this like connection. Like, he's like a brother, and he's substantially younger than me. I think he's, I don't know, 28, 27. And I don't know, just like, he's like a little kid brother. He's like wildly like, very ADHD. The both of us just like can't even finish a sentence. But so he's one of those, like, we wrote several songs on the album. We collaborated on 2. And then Landry Cantrell, he's kind of like the far opposite of Kagan. He is like a super chill, like California guy, and just like, he's just like happy to be alive, but also like ridiculously creative. Like, his brain works in mysterious ways, and he has all these like things going through his head. And so, yeah, we wrote Sunshine and Rainbows, did that one together. He wrote Stars Align with his sister-in-law, and there's another song, Aurora Borealis. So yeah, it was fun.
I'm just curious because it is on your website, the Juno nominations now.
Yeah.
So that would have been the first album, the Elenee.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's start with that. Like, because to me, like, I'm not a musician. I don't know about music, but you know, I do know the Junos. So yes, that's, you know, something.
Yeah.
So I feel like, yeah, to be nominated for a Juno for your self-titled album. Tell me about that experience.
Yeah, the first experience was like so crazy. Like, you kind of hope for that experience, but you never really see it happening for yourself. And again, maybe that's like a limiting belief catching me. But just this idea of like, man, wouldn't it be cool if one day I got nominated for a Juno? Winning wasn't even on my radar. Like, just the nomination is so crazy. So the first time it happened, I remember I set up a camera. I had my like vlogging camera over here, and I, you know, lifted it up or opened up my laptop, and I was gonna see the nominees. And like, the reason I did that was because I was trying to use my platform at the time when I was running my social media, way before. I was trying to like show people how to be disappointed and be okay with like life not going how you wanted. Like, I literally was ready. I had like a post, I had a caption, I had like a whole song story to go with like a song I was writing. So I set up my vlogging camera, and it was like, watch me not get nominated for a Juno. And that was the plan. And so I opened my computer, and I'm like scrolling to where my category is near the bottom. And my name was like the first name on the list. And I was just like, oh my God. I was like, yeah. Like, my husband was like, we were both just, it's so cool. And so I'm like calling people like, Mom, you know, my friend Kim, Kagan, like all my buddies, just like, I have to let them know this is so great. Yeah, it was cool. And we went, and we got to be a part of the Junos, and like, that was like a really cool experience. Like, especially when you're a debut nominee, it just hits different because they treat you so special. You get all these like extra curricular activities, and you get just, yeah, treated really cool. So that was fun. The second album, The Light That Leads to You, also got a Juno nomination this year, which was also really cool. I am embarrassed to say this, but I was working. It was like 9 in the morning. I had just taken the girls to school, and I was working away on my laptop, and I feel like I was like invoicing for the restaurant. Like I was just locked into, I don't know, I'm not a invoice numbers girl. So like when I'm in the zone, I'm just like, don't disturb, like I will not come back to this. So my phone was beside me in do not disturb, because like, as I've just said, like don't disturb. So I'm like doing this invoice for wholesale stuff, and my phone starts like going off, and I'm like, what? Because my phone's on do not disturb. Why are you disturbing me? And it was like 9:07 in the morning, and it was like, congratulations, congratulations, congratulations. And I'm just like, I don't know what's going on. My brain didn't compute. And so I finally like, okay, I'll come back to this invoice. I grabbed my phone, I'm like reading through it, and then I was just like, oh my gosh, 9 o'clock, they released the nominees. Ah! Like I didn't even pay attention to it this year, and I felt bad about it. But man, it was just as cool. I didn't go, it just didn't work out to make it this year, but man, it was so cool. I just, to have somebody like the Academy, the CARIS, whatever it's called, the Canadian Academy, and, professionals in the industry who are judging, to have them like acknowledge that your art is worthy of national recognition, that's kind of huge. So,
yeah, I would say, yeah.
Especially since I co-produced. Like for me, that's kind of the biggest thing for me, is like I got to be a part of like making the songs, not just writing them, which all my stuff before these 2 albums, it was just like I would write a song, send a scratch, and then send it to my producer, who would then like give me back this track, and I'm like, I like it. Like, now it was like, oh, like let's sample stuff, and let's, get really wild and wacky with like sounds that nobody's probably gonna hear, but we'll feel them, like, yeah. So
I wouldn't mind going back to the first Juno nomination. Yeah, because it seems like what a special thing for you, and yeah, the surprise and not knowing, and it's just so lovely. Because yeah, I was curious, like, because I know nothing about the professional music industry, but like, how does one go about getting nominated for a Juno?
Yeah, well, unlike what people maybe think, it's not like a random chance that somebody just comes across your music and they're like, you know what, this deserves national recognition. It's a process. So there are certain metrics that they're looking for. So if you're like me, you're like fully independent, then you submit your stuff to the Academy, and they'll choose, how does it go? Okay, so you pay a fee, you submit your product. Then it goes into the judging, like the preliminary judging. So basically a committee will go and look at all the submissions, and they'll basically say yes or no. Very Commodus. Yes, this is good, this is good. This one, there's problems here. They've already released this stuff. Like it's basically just moving it on to the actual judging. So once it makes it that far, then a panel of judges will come in, and they will actually like judge the music. And then from there, they'll pick 5 nominees, and then those 5 nominees go back to the same judges, and then those judges will pick the winner. And so, yeah, it's not random. You do, like, there's a system where you do have to have certain things in place, and they do look for metrics. I know it's technically not like metrics based when they pick the winner, but they do want to know, like, are you touring? Do you, like, what's your monthly listeners at? What's your revenue from music? Like, they do want to know that you're like taking this thing pretty seriously, and you're not just like, I made this thing in my basement and I'm not going to make any more,
If we can talk maybe a little about the producing side too, because you mentioned that second album you produced. Yeah, tell me a little bit more about the producing side of your journey.
Yeah, it really is like, if all of the things in my head get to come out of my head, that's production. Singing is fun because it's like, you are an instrument, and so you make the sounds how you want and whatever. But when it's like imaginative, I hear or I feel, and I want people to feel this too. You can do that so much differently with music production versus, it's kind of like being an actor versus being the director. Like there's just a different element, a different direction that you kind of approach the same piece of art. And so it's fun being the singer, but it is like way more fun also getting to like create the story so that people can feel the way that the singer is feeling when they're presenting the song. And so, yeah, I wouldn't say I'm like a great big producer. It's more just like I started during COVID, just collecting stuff and equipment and going to YouTube University for all things Logic and stuff like that. And yeah, just putting it together into, I don't know. And I'll be honest and say that like probably 90% of the things that I make never see the light of day because they're mid at best. But getting to come up with a concept or a storyline, you know, audibly, and then having someone else who's better than you to come in and kind of like add the finishing touches, like that is so fun. Because then you're not like on the hook for the whole song. You're just like, you're on the hook for maybe the storyline or parts of it. But if people hate it, you can be like, it was him.
Fair, yeah. That was good,
Yeah.
good stuff. Yeah, well, I think that is all the time we have for this segment.
Cool.
So yeah, I really enjoyed learning about your artistic journey and your stories.
This is fun.
Yeah. So this has been TELUS STORYHIVE on location here in Lloydminster at Spiro's. I'm Michael Bartz. I make short films and podcasts about environmental sustainability. And this is my co-host,
Daniel J. Perryman, local theatre and filmmaker based in Lethbridge, Alberta, and this is...
I'm Elenee. I am an artist, songwriter, producer, all the things in between, and an entrepreneur here in the border city of Lloydminster.
all right, we'll be right back.
Hello, and welcome back to TELUS STORYHIVE's On Location in Lloydminster. We're at Spiro's. My name is Daniel J. Perryman, local theatre and filmmaker based in Lethbridge, Alberta, and this is my co-host.
Michael Bartz. I make short films and podcasts about environmental sustainability, and this is...
Hello everyone, my name is Elenee. I'm here from the border city of Lloydminster. I'm an actress. What am I? I'm I now.
Sing the song.
Well, singer, songwriter, an entrepreneur, an actress today too.
I'd love to just start on like some of your most recent singles.
Okay.
I think there was one on April 17th.
Yeah.
It came out called Firm Foundation, written by Chris Hardy, I believe, or Chris Hardy was featured on there.
He's featured on it, yeah.
Yeah. What can you tell me about that piece and putting that together?
Well, okay. So the past, I would say since January and all the way up until July, I'm experimenting a little bit with a whole album of covers. These are co-produced. The short story, the little Cliff Notes or Spark Notes version is back in 2023, I was on a plane on the tarmac, was like waiting to take off. And I had just come from an award show where I won like 0 awards, but was nominated for like 6 or something. I was feeling like kind of down on myself. I was like, I suck, you know? And I really, like, I was just like, okay, we really need to take this production thing more seriously because what if the artist thing doesn't work out and like I need to produce music instead? And so I decided when I got home, I was gonna like produce covers because that was kind of an easy way to not take responsibility for the song, but I could take responsibility for how I perceived the song and like the story that I kind of was telling through the production. So I started to put these covers on Instagram and they started to go viral, which was so cool. But then I was like, oh no, I have to like keep up with this. So it became a whole thing where I was like, the momentum was going. I was just constantly like locked up in my basement studio and like making sad pop covers of these familiar worship songs I grew up to, you know, in church. So obviously Firm Foundation is pretty new. I say obviously. Firm Foundation is a newer song. It's not from like the 90s and 2000s, which is where kind of most of the covers originated. But it's a song that I've just like enjoyed, and it's been really impactful. And I feel like the messaging of it all is like, it's just, yeah, it's true to who I am in this season of life.
And we have one more piece that I saw on March 20th, I think you released, We Fall Down. Again, what were the thoughts and experiences going into that?
So that one, I wanted to be like kind of like heavenly. I wanted gold. Like I wanted like, we're in like this throne room and it's like heavenly and it's like, there's gold and like scarlet and deep purple. Like everything is just kind of like royal, but like in heaven. And so we kind of just made it like that with like the, that's like the intro is just these like vocal motifs. And it feels kind of like echoey, like you're in a big hall. And so we did that. And then we we wrote from scratch this sort of like tag on the end of the song. And that we start to overlap it as the song kind of fades out. And what I loved about it is it's like if we were in like this heavenly throne room, it's so big and echoey that like you would hear certain things happening over here, and then there's certain things happening over here, and you kind of just like it overlaps, and it's all like just beautiful, you know?
Yeah. So I was super curious about just that idea of prep as an artist in this upcoming project, and kind of taking a look at the release dates. And you had mentioned just that idea of like preparing for a year basically for this project. So what can you tell me about that?
We just decided, I did this album in collaboration with a group called Anthem Worship and Mass Anthem, and they're some just awesome fellows that are in Franklin, Tennessee, and they just basically said like, before we really go gung-ho on release, like we should probably have these songs ready. And so Chris and I worked, and when I say like it was so tedious, like it was so dumb. Like we went back and forth on like vocal things forever. I actually like low-key hate these songs. When I listen to them again, I'm just like, ah. But yeah, and it was just this idea that like once we started putting them out, this momentum would continue to build, and like we would just have songs ready to go instead of, you know, and I've done projects like this my whole life, or my whole releasing life, where it was just like, yeah, we'll put out a song here and there, and then when the next one's ready, we'll put it out. And then like before you know it, you're going 6 to 8 months between song releases, and then there's really no space for building momentum. Like you just kind of show up when people don't expect it. It's like whack-a-mole, you know, instead of like you just hitting the algorithm every week or 2 weeks to just like get people aware of what you're doing. And we've garnered like, I want to say almost 2,000 like forever pre-saves, which means that people like automatically pre-save your next song, which is super cool. So there's like now kind of a following around this album, which is fun.
But you mentioned going on tour last year, and you know, you kind of shared a bit more personally about yourself, about being an introvert, and maybe some of that stage fright to some extent, and those experiences. And so I guess I'd just be curious for people maybe, you know, dreaming of going on tour. It's like, what was that experience like for you?
Terrifying, expensive, really hard, and emotionally depleting. It's like the hardest thing you'll ever do. Was it worth it? That's the real question. I still don't know. Yeah, I'm like just being honest and transparent. I know like when you see other artists going on tour that have like a label backing or have even like a production company, promotional stuff when they're pushing it, like it's pretty chill. But when you're like, I was like the financial institution funding the thing. Like I was the driver, I was the road manager, I was like the phone call lady. It was so hard on my brain and body, honestly. So yeah, it was hard. Would I do it again? Yes, but I would do it very differently. Like I would have a team for sure. And that just means that like I don't think I'll be able to do it for a little while, you know? Like I want to have the right team, and I want to have like a good investment into a good team, and not just kind of like grabbing people that I think could do it well. And so it's a whole thing. Like you really have to,
I know we are kind of getting towards the end of our time here together, but I do believe we are able to show your website here, and I would love to just take a look at that. And so one of the things that caught my eye on your website was just like the merchandise, and I know that, you know, one of the pieces was for No Place Here, I think. You had a few merch items for that, and what can you tell me about, you know, having merch available and that side that seems more like the business side of music, and just setting all that up? And well, what was that like?
I don't know, guys. I don't want to break it to you. Like if you're like an aspiring artist, everything about being an artist is the business side. You can't really bypass it. You have to be entrepreneurial, I think, to succeed at business, because it is you just like you're the product, you know, like, but it's the same type of business model. Yeah, that merch is kind of old, and I feel like I should update my website with like more new stuff, just based on like the last album we did and everything. But yeah, I designed some of it, and I don't know, I was just kind of doing what I was feeling. I was like, oh, I feel like a little hat would be cute, or a little toque.
Fashionable. So no Crocs, but
I should do Crocs.
Maybe you should
do that. I'm gonna look into that. I'll let you guys know.
What can you tell me more about the role of entrepreneurship?
Nice, you got it.
Thanks. In your music specifically, or from, you know, other places in your life.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have a grasp on business, I think, to do well. Like making art is cool. Selling art is a different thing. And it's just like they're two different beasts. So it's the same with music too. Like making music is super cool, but if you actually want to promote it and like get it on radio, get it in people's ears that you might not have like direct access to, like you have to approach it from like, okay, how do I steward this business well? Which is like, you know, momentum and figuring out a release strategy where it kind of snowballs versus like, oh, I'll release one here and then when the next one's done in like half a year, we'll put that one out. Like you have to really be really strategic, and you have to think logistically, not just artsy fartsy, which I mean, that's my forte. But again, surrounding yourself with a team of people who are very logistical and pragmatic and will make choices for you based on like business decisions and not like emotion, you know? That's kind of where I think the business of music is a little bit different than maybe just owning a restaurant. But yeah, I recommend it if you're an artist and you don't go on tour unless you're ready. But everything else is really fun, and yeah, you can do it. You got this.
Nice.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I think that is all the time that we have together. I'm going to try and bring out my Canadian dialect here to do our little outro. So yeah, this has been TELUS Storyhives on location in Lloydminster. We're at Spiro's. My name is Daniel J. Perryman, local theater and filmmaker based in Lethbridge, Alberta. This is my co-host,
Michael Bartz. I make short films and podcasts about environmental sustainability. And this is...
Hello there, I'm Elenee. I'm an artist, songwriter, and entrepreneur here in the border city of Lloydminster, Saskatchewan, Alberta.
Thank you so much for watching.
If you or someone you know has a story to tell, scan this QR code and get in touch with the Storyhive On Location team.